New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
Rev B right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for today, November 15th, 2024. Oh my God, it's the middle of November and the world has not stopped.
It's still turning on its axis.
Well, we did make a hard right.
It did stop for one moment though. It did. Yeah, it stopped for one moment to try to figure out which way to turn.
I think so. Oh my goodness.
A whole bunch of people took a deep breath and a whole bunch of people took a big deep shit. We made, and I'm going to say it again, we made a hard right turn at Albuquerque. So
gotta laugh because otherwise we'd be crying.
I find it funny.
Yeah.
I find it a little funny that Trump ran on the border issue, and one of the biggest problems we have is, or supposedly that we have, is people coming over our southern border, and now you Canadians get to feel what that's like.
Exactly, because we're looking at the borders really closely now because the immigration from the U.S. is expected to be substantial.
Yeah. Hey man, I need a coyote to get me into Quebec.
I think everything is going.
What was that?
I think everything's going to be a little substantial.
Yeah.
I said I think everything is going to be a little substantial. It, you know, I don't know how serious people took Trump's platform 2025. You know, it was a 900-page document. Most people read some facsimile of, not the real deal. Mm-hmm. And when you see the people he's put in place so far, or at least nominated so far,
yeah, they're
all young. I don't think, except for a few, they're like 45 or, you know, between that 44 and 47 years old, which means they have longevity. Mm-hmm. He has made steps to do everything in that book. And people are still like, okay, let's wait and see. Well, you don't need to wait too long, and you're going to see a whole lot, I believe. And it's going to be very, very borderish. And I'm looking to get to the border real soon right now.
Awesome. We'll let you in. We'll let you in. I'm kind of dumbfounded by it all. And I wonder, is it just that, you know, some people said, well, we can't have a woman, so I guess this is the alternative. Maybe?
Yeah, you know, in the Black community, the question was, if they didn't select Hillary, what makes you think they're going to select Kamala?
Yeah.
How black are we going to have to get for black men to vote for a woman then? Because to me, that I'm a little disappointed, because the numbers I've seen is black men voted for Trump. Right? Not all, and obviously, but the numbers are consistent that he won in almost every demographic out there. Black women,
Right.
he did, she won with black women, but he won with black men. And to me, there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
Like my understanding, and from what I see, maybe it's not, quote, the best economy we've ever had, but prices were high. We're in a period of inflation. I've seen that before. You two have seen that before in your lifetime. And it felt like we were in a fairly good position as far as the economy, but he just stood out there and said, we're screwed. We're done. This is terrible. We can't, everything out of his mouth. And then they want to say that, well, we ran on the economy. You ran on saying we have a broken. Go ahead, Z.
The thing I think with black men is it's almost unexplainable. I'll start there, because for them to think that those who voted for him, who thinks that he's going to I don't know, somehow pull them up by their bootstraps is ludicrous.
Yeah, it is.
And I was talking to a friend the other day. He's named a lot of people to positions, and so far, not one is black. I don't even know if black has been in the running for any other position. Now, he still has a lot to go, so I'm waiting to see.
Not one of them are qualified either.
Well, there's that. The only thing I saw out of this that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
I think everybody who's currently incarcerated should now have a whole new sense of hope going. They can get out and become president one day, because felons are allowed. So, it doesn't matter what you've done, who you've murdered, or who you've had sex with, or what you've done. Guess what? You too can be president. That is frightening. And how long before he wipes out all his charges?
He's already said, right, he's going to pardon.
He'll do that on his way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But they said he's going to do a case by case. He's supposed to do a case by case on the Jan 6. So we'll see. I mean, it's here's one of the scarier parts, right? So he has 3 months. He doesn't take office to January 20th. So he has 2 months to get all his people in place, get all his ducks in a row. They'll have marching orders for the first 90 days as soon as they hit the office or before, and they're going to go to work. And so to really get a good understanding of what these next 4 years are going to be like is going to be those first 90 days from January to March or April, whenever it is. Then you'll know. Then I'll know for real whether I need to get me a passport and come on up to Canada. Because it'll be clear.
Yeah. It's and
I'd get your passport before January 20th if I were you.
Yeah, you might want to get that passport now, just in case.
Just in case.
And as
I got it.
Linda said in the chat, as a woman, I'm feeling quite stomped on. And I just, as a woman, I mean, I'm in Canada, but as a woman, what's going on against women down there terrifies me. It just reminds me of The Handmaid's Tale and the book that Margaret Atwood wrote so many years ago that got turned into a TV series up here. And it's like looking at that, women losing their rights, a male-dominated patriarchy, like it just, that's terrifying, actually. what could happen for women.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of.
And I mean, for him to put JF, I was gonna say he got JFK over Health and Human Services, as we said earlier. I'm like, ooh, the guy who has a worm in his brain is going to be in charge of medicine. Maybe he has a good incentive, and I'll hold the jury for a minute. But some of the stuff that he said is quite scary.
Well, but let's be realistic. RFK was injured by a faulty, by some reaction to a vaccine. He is still fighting against his own woundedness. He was wounded by a vaccine. He set out on a personal crusade to get rid of vaccines, and that's what he's about. He has no real expertise, and that's what I mean when I say not one of them is qualified. Not one of the people he has nominated has any real expertise in their field. Even Mark Rubio, right? The Latin American countries, or the Latin population is like all happy because he nominated Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio doesn't know anything about being Latin, being Latinx, being Hispanic. He got no clue what that means in today's world. He's a white guy. He's a white politician who knows nothing about about the job he's supposed to lead.
Yeah.
RFK's the same way. He's a one-trick pony. Vaccines are bad. We got to do away with all vaccines. Why? Because I got hurt by one. Got nothing to do with how many people vaccines have saved or helped.
So that's an interesting one, because if vaccines got banned, like could the president do that rate like a flash across the country and go, no more vaccines in this country because they're not safe? And what does that do then? All of a sudden there's measles outbreaks, there's polio outbreaks, like all of these things start to.
Then Canada really will have a border crisis.
Yes, absolutely.
Like these things, I don't think they quite understand. You can't just go and outlaw all these things, because a good half of this country will fight back.
Mm-hmm.
The red side might have more guns. The red side might have more people willing to use those guns. But I get a pretty good feeling the blue side will learn how to use guns if they need to. And all of this is scary as shit, right? I mean, like, we shouldn't even be having this we shouldn't even have to be having this conversation.
No, exactly.
Well, and one of the things I heard from the Hispanic side was that a lot of Hispanics, Latinx, I'm not sure anyway. Their thing was, well, at least we're not black, right? Because more, Hispanics or Latinx and blacks are the only group that have individuals that cover the whole spectrum of color, right? From very dark to very light. You go to Panama, down in Panama, or or down to the Dominican, you got a family that looks like a rainbow, right? But by and large, it's easier for Hispanics to pass for white than it is for blacks to pass for white.
Yeah.
And they are, that was a statement I heard from a Latinx community member saying, hey, that their sentiment was, hey, a lot of Hispanics said, well, at least I'm not black, because they're going to get the blunt of all of this, right? That was his sentiment. Now, it's yet to be seen, but it's scary.
It is scary. It is scary. It's like everything's being turned back. Linda mentioned, science being degraded to the dark ages. There might be a whole lot more than science degraded to the dark ages. It's like things are reverting back to more of a, well, I was going to say a Nazi state, but
Well, yeah, no, I've, yeah. See, but it's interesting. We try not to use these terms because we recognize the power of our words, and yet we do have to call out what we see it when we see it, right?
Mhm.
You guys, at least I'm not black. It makes me think that if we're putting Matt Gaetz in the AG seat, so I might be a pedophile, but at least I'm not gay or trans, right? It's like
Yeah.
it is that, and this is real. Our brother Michael, who was a guest last week with us, has been chiming in as we go along today, and he's sharing, Nutter and future AG Matt Gaetz will make a mockery of the legal system.
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz is smiling real big today because he now has control of all the evidence against him.
Yeah.
Right? Matt now has access. He will if they actually get him into the AG seat, but he will have access to all the evidence against him. And now, I also do still have trust in the American system and the American public. And somebody's got pictures of Matt Gaetz and a 15-year-old somewhere. Somebody's got pictures of Matt Gaetz on Epstein's plane. Somebody's got pictures of Matt Gaetz freaking it off with Diddy or something. And when those things come forward, which they inevitably will now,
Yeah.
all that evidence just became worth a whole lot more if he becomes the attorney general. When all that stuff comes forward, and in today's internet age, it's not like you can hide it immediately. It's not like it can stay hidden forever.
Yeah.
If somebody's got it, come forward, it made public, and I think the American public will march in the streets to take him out of office. And I trust if it gets tough enough, even the scientists will and the nurses will start marching in the streets to say we can't we can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong, and we could be in the opening scenes of A Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Or worse.
I don't know if there's anything worse than that, but I don't know if you've read it or if you've seen the show, but it's horrific for women. Absolutely horrific.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about women. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead.
One of my friends, when I look at the number, because like 50, somewhere between 50, I don't know if all the numbers are in yet, but somewhere between 53 and 55% of white women voted for Trump. And my friend said he called it the Lucy effect, from Lucy and Charlie Brown in Peanuts, where Lucy would hold the football for Charlie Brown to kick, and every time he got there, she promised he wasn't going to move it, and she'd move the ball. And he was saying that although a lot of white women said they were going to vote for Kamala, to have 53 to 55% of them vote for Trump is the Lucy effect. Somewhere at the last minute, they pulled that ball and said, "No, you're going to kick nothing," and that's it.
Wow. I find it shocking that even one woman would vote for him. And I remember watching something, I don't usually watch the news much because it's too distressing, but I saw a clip of a woman, if Trump loses, there'll be civil war. And I'm like, oh my God. Like up here, we have our politics up here, and we have different parties, and some like this and some, but we do not have the divisiveness around politics that's in the US. I have never heard anyone up here say we're going to have civil war if the conservatives take power, or if the liberals take power, if the NDPs, like that. It doesn't split up families. It doesn't destroy relationships just because somebody's a liberal or a Democrat. So or it's like, so I'm baffled when I hear some of the rage coming from people around who chose who. Like, that just blows me away.
Yeah, it's quite scary.
It is very,
when you think about it. And people talk about the Constitution and all of that. That document, that system of government originally was set up for white male property owners, nobody
Exactly.
else.
That's right.
Everything else that's in there is a retrofit.
Yeah.
And so when when they say they want to go back to the good old days, those are the good old days they're talking about,
Absolutely.
where
Yeah.
everything, including people and women, were property. It
Yeah.
appears, right? That appears what they want to go back to.
Yes.
And it'll be interesting to see how they go about doing that or trying to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that kind of became clear to me, as I'm teaching science mind, it's, whatever you focus on grows and expands. And the focus on every comedian's lips in every newscast, Trump this, Trump that, Trump the other thing. And I think there was just such a huge amount of attention. The focus was him, whether it was we don't like him or we do like him, all of the focus was him. And so it makes perfect sense to me. Consciousness creates. And if we're going to focus all our attention on what we don't want, what we're doing is we're expanding the possibility of creating that for ourselves. And so there needs to be a really big shift where we begin to look at, well, what do we want? Do we want peace? Do we want health? Do we want prosperity? Or if we want these things, then this needs to be our focus, and let him sit in the wings, and let's not give him any more power. Let's take a look at what it is we truly want and begin to focus our energy there.
That's an excellent point, because we will see what's on people's consciousness, in people's consciousness, as this thing unfolds, and see what manifests.
Yeah.
We'll see if somebody's saying one thing, but inside they're holding another intention, or they're really secretly hoping for something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw something, I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw something that suggested one of the top search queries last week was, how do I change my vote? Right. Now that might be just a joke. That might be somebody's wishful thinking. Right. I don't know. But I saw it go by on my feed somewhere, and I was just like, yeah, a little late, like, okay, I guess we got to go back and teach people. I think we need to bring civics class back into the classroom for the United States. This is what it means to vote. This is how you do it. No, you can't go. There's no take backsies.
There's no
right?
take
There's no erase, cancel when it comes to your vote. And I make fun of spiritual people when we do that. Erase. It's like, no, it ain't that easy. And I think we did see, I know we did. We saw a reflection of the American consciousness, and the American consciousness believes more of the American consciousness believes in hate and fear. We do not trust women. We do not think women are first-class citizens. We think gays, lesbians, and the whole LGBTQ spectrum is even lower than that. And we'll give a little something to the blacks and the Hispanics, but don't expect much. And that's what's on display right now. And Linda's got a good question here.
Yeah.
Christianity as a national religion is on the agenda too. I'm pondering how that will affect New Thought groups. Truthfully, Linda, I think we are too small to make the radar, and I don't think we're in any trouble of being outlawed but I think I think all groups are going to see more of, like, hate's been legalized.
Yeah, it has.
It's okay now to express your hate. 3 weeks ago, it was still kind of, nah, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. Now, have at it.
We're going to have more Charlottesvilles and Tiki torches, and there's some good people among them going on if we're not careful. And it's going to be on a larger scale. They had a play about Anne Frank in Ohio a day or so ago, and they had guys out front, or people, I don't know, may have been some females there as well, but they were out front with Nazi flags protesting a play about Anne Frank. I mean, like, really?
Yeah.
And so I just had to go and look. I mean, the numbers that Trump got across the board, and this is how he won. He took little snippets from each group, like in age 15% of those between 18 and 29 voted for Trump. 28% of those 65 and above voted. 28%, of those 65 and above voted for Trump. Those in the 45 and 64, he got 34% of that vote. I mean,
wow.
That is pretty stark to me. That's pretty stark.
Shocked to see youth doing that. Like the young people, I thought for sure would stand against what, given everything that's been going on in the country with gun violence and women's rights being removed. That is a shocking number.
Yeah, and you look now, and the numbers here. This is interesting. 84%, and this is from AP. 84% of the white vote went to Trump. 84%, according to this. That says to me that there's a lot of hidden agendas. There's a lot of people saying one thing, but absolutely doing something totally different. And so people are going to be very suspect when they talk to people, when they're around, because you're not going to know who's who. That's going to be a big problem. That's going to be on all fronts, whether it's on the white front, on the black front, on the Latinx front, on the youth front, on the age front. People are going to be afraid to bring up issues or talk about points because they don't know who they're talking to. Somebody they thought was A will wind up eventually, or inevitably rather, being B.
Yeah.
Michael's in the chat box got a really good point. 10 years of reprogramming the people. This is not by choice. From the day Trump rolled down that escalator, we have been, yes, there has been a massive campaign to reprogram the beliefs of now more than 50% of the American population. They have reached over their tipping point and it would appear it's working. And his agenda, and it's funny because so many people just laughed and thought it was a joke and wrote him off immediately, but could very well be the guy that ends democracy in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
if nothing else, Trump is a master marketer.
Yes,
that's his claim to fame his whole life. From when he started in New York with the Trump Towers, and he had the building on the West Side Highway that eventually they had to tear down, I think, because it just had so many problems, to the Trump Taj Mahal thing out in Atlantic City, which everything he's done is more about marketing and getting buy-in, and that's what he's done. He's run people who voted for him, he gave them ability to say, I'm going to grab you in the crotch, or, you're an idiot, which is all inflammatory, right? And so people who have pent up frustration, people who think that they aren't a part of the system or have been discounted, he's given them permission to voice these kinds of feelings, which, we all have those kinds of feelings, but there's a civil, for lack of a better word, way of having disputes and debates so that something gets done other than these inflammatory words, and then nothing nothing happens and everything goes to shit.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Linda's asking, the super big question is, will we tip to a dictatorship? It is now a possibility. It is not a probability, Linda. I am not, sorry, I'm not going to buy into that one. I am not going to give an ounce of thought of belief that we will do that as American people. I think that is going to be one of the major things. That if he came out right now and said, well, we're going to do away with this two-term thing, even at the highest of highs, I think the MAGA movement, that would make the MAGA movement slow down a step and go, whoa, wait a minute. Right? We do hear that there is some pushback against Matt Gaetz going into the Department of Justice, that Republican senators say he has a very steep uphill to get to that seat. And again, who's ever got the pictures of Matt Gaetz, now is the time. If you holding on to that video or you know who is, now is the time for a secret drop, and New Thought Media Network would be happy to help you with that. Because so I do think that there is that full dictatorship. I think even the MAGA would stand up and say, well, we gave you 4 years. Let's see what you can do, before they would just all jump on board. Not to say that I don't think that's his end game. I think it is his end game, but I think there's still a lot of people that are going to bet that there's a lot of people that are going to hold back on going that far. I have to have some trust in the American public at this point, and if that's the last shred of trust I have, then so be it. But there is good news.
Yay.
You're right, and folks, I'm not talking about the kind of good news that we do on Friday nights. So you're here on a Friday morning, Fridays at 5 here on the New Thought Media Network. Myself, I do the good news on a few Fridays out of the month, and Reverend B here, Rev Barbara Jean, does a couple of weeks of the good news as well, and that's where we get to share the truly good news stories that are happening in the world. The good news here is that InfoWars has been sold at auction. Now, if you haven't been following this, Alex Jones was ordered by the courts to liquidate his properties, the InfoWars property, the InfoWars website and media network. And did you guys hear the news of who bought InfoWars? The Onion.
Yep.
The Onion newspaper, which is known for its...
And Barbara Jean won't know who the Onion is.
No, I don't know any of this. It's not.
Oh, the Onion is a fabulous, sarcastic newspaper and website. So they have their headlines on Thursday was new dating site suggests people you already know but thought you were too good for. Trump boys have a slap fight over who gets to run foreign policy meetings. And here's why I decided to buy InfoWars. And so the owner of the Onion has purchased InfoWars. He says the site was immediately shut down. InfoWars was shut down on Thursday. They plan to relaunch in January as a parody site for conspiracy theories.
Wow.
I think it is a fabulously creative way to do this. The owner also had spoken with the families of Sandy Hook, and they were in favor of this. The family coalition of the surviving families from the Sandy Hook tragedy were in agreement with all of this, and the site's shut down, but you can look for it to come back in the beginning of the year. I think it's a fitting end to the Alex Jones story and the Alex Jones legacy, that the site that attempted to verify and validate conspiracy theories is going to become the place to go laugh at conspiracy theories.
That's amazing. I'll have to check this out, because it's new to me. So I'm excited to go online and see this Onion and see what it's all about.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
theonion.com.
You know the story about the Onion. You know
Layers?
the saying about the onion in life. It says
Yeah.
life is like an onion. You have to peel it one layer at a time, and sometimes it'll make you cry. Uh, and so you know, when I sit here and think about, I heard someone talk about the other day about dynasty, right? And now that Trump is back in the office, when you look at the people he's putting in place, he's putting in place a dynasty. And the person, and it was in a conversation, the person said, well, his kids, he says, no, it's not about the kids. Although they're all there and ready to jump in if they feel they want to or need to. But it's the dynasty of the people he's putting in place around him,
Yeah.
that if they do that, they could, I mean, haven't heard much from JD Vance lately. Um, and they were making a criticism of Obama and the Democratic Party, saying when Obama was in there and got 2 terms, there seems to be no effort of a strategic point of how do we continue this democratic idea from their perspective. Nobody was groomed. They turned it over to Joe. Joe was supposed to get out. Joe didn't get out. Joe got out 90 days before, which gave almost anybody, even if they had picked a white man, Gavin Newsom had been there. I don't know if he could have mustered enough in 30 days, I mean, in 3 months to overcome what Trump was doing for 4.5 years. I mean, he's been, since he left office in 2020, he's been campaigning for this job.
Yes, he has. Yeah, he has. Wow.
And he's been sowing the fear and the hate since before 2016. He's been sowing the fear and the hate all the way back to his involvement in the birther movement, attacking Obama's birth certificate. That's the thing.
Yeah, before that, when he did the Central Park, it was before that when he did the Central Park 5, when he took a full-page ad on those kids back in, I was still in New York when that happened, when he took a full-page ad on 5 kids who supposedly raped this person. That never happened.
Never happened. Yeah.
And have now been exonerated. Exactly. This is what it looks like when you use metaphysics religiously for 20 plus years. He's been harping the same message going on 20, right? And we know now that even before the Central Park 5, he brought up in what could only be called a supreme white household. Yeah. Did you guys hear what Russia did? Like this past week, what Russian television did this past week?
No, I didn't.
They congratulated Trump on his win with nude pictures of Melania in the background. So they dug up all those old modeling photos, those semi-nudes of her. You know, they weren't porn per se; they were modeling nudes.
Wow.
And they got their 2 hosts sitting out in the front of the stage saying, "Hey, it was, congratulations, da da da," and the boards in the back all have these like slightly blurry, faded out and out of focus of the nudes of Melania. Like,
wow.
What better way do you say, well, we got your guy by the balls? Like, we got nude pictures of your wife, dude. What do you want to do? Right? It's like,
wow. Talk about disrespect.
And again, we've known this.
Yeah.
If you're half intelligent, you've been paying half of an ounce of attention, I still get lost sometimes in how in the F could we have done this? How did so many people turn a blind eye to all the things? You wouldn't want your daughter's nude pictures on TV of a foreign country. You wouldn't want your daughter to have to deal with any of the things that he does to women. You wouldn't want your business to have to try to, I guess, unless you're big enough business, but it's
Look, all I can say is fasten your seatbelt and make sure your airbags are properly working. Because you know, even Trump himself, Trump has not even been on the air that much, right? He's been relatively low key. I saw something they had something at Mar-a-Lago last night, and they had Sylvester Stallone there, and you know, so all of these big time rich entertainers are going to whoever behind them. They're coming out now, and because now it's like, you know, and it's going to be interesting because a lot of these people got a lot of money and a lot of power, and we haven't even talked about Ramaswamy and Elon Musk over the efficiency program. You know, one of the biggest parts of that Project 25 was to basically decimate some of these departments, Department of Education, all of these. Imagine if we, so to speak, decentralized the Department of Education. And I know there's, you know, all right, but they just ruled out in Louisiana that they cannot put the 10 Commandments in every classroom. But that may come back in January because they're going to take it to the Supreme Court. And so imagine each state begins to come up with its own rules of what you can teach, what you can't teach, what their approach is. Now we're going to have a very disparaging time trying to figure out, well, you know, state X, their educational standards are low. I'm not hiring anybody from that state. Everybody from this state I'm hiring, or some combination thereof. It'll be a mess. It'll be a mess.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. We need to fasten our seatbelts and make sure the airbags are working, because this is a time of huge change that doesn't look like it's trending upward. It's falling into the ditch. Human rights be damned. You know, white male is right. Christian English is right.
Yep.
It's terrifying to think of what it is they can do. The country's pretty diverse, but to think that, and the outrage over, I hear every now and again, I'll hear a white man go, well, it's not fair what's happening to me now. Like, you know, everybody's mad at, buddy, you created the system. You created the system, and now you're getting to experience some of the effect of that system. So quit your crying and, you know, just learn something from it. Wake up a little bit. Like, I had a guy in a class, you know, who started spouting off about, oh, poor white man. And meanwhile, I've got black students, and it's like, I'm going, I'm sorry, you have to stop talking right now. You have to stop talking. And he's like, why? And I said, stop talking. Just stop. And we will talk after class, but you need to just stop right now. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, poor you. You've been running the show forever. And now it's fighting against you. Well, good. It's about time.
That's one of those places where, to me, I would just laugh. I would be the least sympathetic and compassionate minister you've ever seen, because I would have said, you out. I don't want to hear another word. Out. You go back to SOM 101. You go get yourself some counseling, and then we'll talk about you coming back into this community, because that stuff is not appropriate. So.
And he's a therapist. He's a licensed therapist. So, yeah.
And he's going to be interesting to see what comes out of the woodwork.
Oh man, yeah.
And we're gonna have to we're going to have to actually play the game their way a little bit. We're going to have to push back a little bit. It isn't all going to be rainbows and puppy dogs. While we've been talking, I have my favorite hit list of people I try to keep an eye on social. Today's post. Ever wonder why kids didn't shoot up schools back then? Because they were raised to respect God, their parents, and their country. The image is 5 white children, not an ounce of, I mean, they've got a picture of Lincoln in the background. Right? And it's like, yeah, and they didn't have access to guns that were designed to kill people for mass killings back then either. Like they're going to try to simplify the message to make that perspective absolutely right and all of the rest of us absolutely wrong. We're going to have to stand in the truth. Michael's saying, meditation is medication. Absolutely. We're going to have to double down on our practices and do our best to stand up for truth without aggressively personalizing the attacks.
And we're going to have to step into that practice of contemplation where we ask questions. We have to ask questions, and they got to be tough questions. We got to do more than just meditate. Meditate and figure out what you want to contemplate, and then go contemplate, ask questions, do the research, and hopefully get enough people moving in the right direction to take some action.
Absolutely. We need to stand together and begin to march, back to the days of King, and just as women, as people of color, we have to stand together and stand against what's going on. And, the LGBTQ community, it's time for everybody to kind of join hands and build that bridge that will actually take the country back.
Yeah.
That rainbow coalition that Jesse Jackson spoke about way back when.
I've heard Valerie Cower a lot in the last week, and her new book and her new pieces that, right, we're in the birthing process of something new. Breathe.
Yeah.
And then push.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe. And then push.
Yeah.
And right now, we got to breathe. Michael said we need to stretch, we need to breathe, we need to strengthen our resolve through our practices to meet the challenges that are in front of us.
Yeah, it's not time to lie down. It's time to stand up.
Yep. I'm with Michael. Radical evolutionary thoughts that create harmony. Start thinking radical evolutionary thoughts that create harmony. And so we don't go looking for the fight, but we also stand our ground.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Folks, we have run well into overtime. We're even beyond, we're in like super double secret overtime at this point. Words have power. I've been talking about making this a 3-hour show every Friday, and now we're up to 48 minutes this week. So we're going to let you all get back to your morning. Grab a cup of tea. Join us. Oh, see, and there's our brother Raymond. And do what we can to ensure we are not entering into breech birth. Yes.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Beautiful.
Let us not become what it is that created this. Let us not become so entrenched that we vilify other people. So thank you for that. Glad to know you're with us, Raymond. Raymond, I just want to say it. You have an open invitation, sir. Any Friday morning you want to join us, you just let us know. And we'll get you on this program with us. So we'd love to have you. And we always love when you're with us, Raymond. So feel free. All right, we're going to get out of here for now. Thanks, folks, for being with us. Please do feel free to join us throughout the day. Rev B will be back at 1 o'clock with the Joy Show. I'm on the Good News Tonight at 5. Reverend Michael's here with the Fireside Chat at 6. It is a full Friday here on the New Thought Media Network. We would love to have you join us again and again and again. Before we wrap this up, I'll give our panelists, I'll give Barbara and Z one last 10 seconds each. Any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
Love is the answer. We've got to.
And my,
Go ahead.
I would say we move with light.
Yes.
Light, not just white light, but light that can be diffracted, that can go through a prism and come out in the full rainbow. We forget about that. So let's move with light in all of its splendor in the rainbow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Love your neighbor, even when it's difficult.
Exactly.
All right, folks, we'll be back again next week with more of Ministers Talking Shit every Friday morning, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Until then, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.